Hey there, it's Andre here with another interview with the Impulsive Thinker podcast for the high achieving ADHD entrepreneur. Today's episode is brought to you by KADAK, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. You can get more information and make donations at their website at www.caddac.ca. Today, I got a really good guest host here today, Francesco Lombardo from Veritage from Bermuda. He's also the host of the Safe Space Next Generation or Next Gen podcast. And I was able to be a guest on his podcast twice, actually. And we had a very great discussion about ADHD and then also about self-expression, which I thought was very important to talk about. Franco here works with large companies, family-owned companies that's transitioning into the next generation of ownership. And I think he felt that a discussion about ADHD along that lines would be beneficial to our listeners and possibly his. Thank you, Franco, for joining us. And how are you today?
I am fabulous. Andre, great to be on the show with you.
Oh, I can't wait because our conversations are just stupendously awesome and intellectual.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So we're talking about ADHD. So you got me curious when you were on the show around ADHD. And my question to you is, how does a family recognize that either a child in the family or an adult has ADHD? What are some of the symptoms, recognizable signs?
We'll start with the child first. Are you talking about children that they're very young or as they're growing up become adults?
So great clarification. Let's go from say 12 to 20.
Okay. Well, ADHD has three major symptoms. That's inattention, hyperactivity, and attention. I got inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Those are the official symptoms. Now, the two unofficial symptoms that are out there is also an executive functioning deficit. That's how you plan, organize, structure, and prioritize day-to-day activities and goals. And then also emotional dysregulation. Since the ADHD brain feels emotions intensely, like multiples more than the neurotypical, with the impulsivity and the lack of a filter, it's immediately bursts out. So people see that as emotional dysregulation because we don't have control of our emotions and we react immediately. So if you're talking about from 12 years old to a young adult, that's where the executive functioning deficits actually show up because not grade 12. So when you're 12 years old, you're grade 7, grade 8, you're less reliant on the teachers and the parents give you a little more independence on making your own decisions and planning and organizing, and the skills aren't really there. You're actually 3 to 4 years behind your peers in executive functioning. So the one thing would be, like I'm seeing this a lot with my young daughters, is my oldest is not going to high school. Everything can't be organized. Last minute details are being done. Forgetting assignments are being done. Always seem like they're forgetting things or not listening is another major signal that something's not right. That's on the hyperactive side or impulsive reactions, impulsive statements. But you have the inattentive type, like my youngest actually, she's 10 years old. They're always lost in the clouds, as the term says. They're always internalizing, they're always daydreaming, and they get distracted very easily. And this is where it's very key. I think if you want to ask the child, why did you get distracted? And you listen to their answer, either they give you some BS answer just to get out of trouble, or when they say, I don't know, ask them to explain the process, and you'll actually hear them not quite understanding why. They know they're being distracted. They know that's not good, yet at the same time, they can't figure it out. And that's where the frustration lies. That's where the emotional dysregulation gets a little bit. There's more outbursts, there's more reaction. I'm not stupid. I can't figure it out, but I know I can do it, but I can't figure it out. And you can hear that if you're truly listening to what they're saying.
So in adults, right, are those some of the same symptoms? just
Yeah.
toned down a little bit?
It's more well hidden.
That's what I
Um,
meant.
Yeah, so like as an adult, you can actually start creating systems or doing extra things to make it look like you're on top of stuff. Like for me, I found out recently is I would spend 3 to 4 hours a day just making sure I'm organized to do stuff in a day, to do my 8-hour day. So my days are actually 12 hours. 4 hours organizing, make sure everything's is not lost, because I know it's going to be lost. I know I will forget. And then with our short attention span, like our working memory is very short compared to everyone else. You know, you could remember 7 or 8 things in your mind without writing them down. I'm lucky to get 3. So if the 4th thing gets added on, that first thing's gone forever, unless I wrote it down.
So I sent you some great questions to ask, and I forgot them.
Yeah.
So can you remind me what's another great question? Because when I thought about it, it was on the context of family businesses and next generation transition.
How it
So can you
impacts
remind me-
ADHD, yeah, how ADHD impacts decision making. And right, I just did that right now. You asked me the question, I impulsively just interrupted you to get it out before I forgot. Because if I don't get it out immediately, I'm going to forget it. So there's
Right,
another
right.
sign. People keep thinking
Okay.
I don't listen. I just don't I interrupt all the time because I don't care what you're saying. It's not that. It says, I know I got something good to say in my mind, but I got to get it out before I forget,
Before you lose it.
before I
Okay.
lose it.
Got it.
So
Okay.
one of the tricks I do is I start to write down more of these questions as I'm talking to some, so I don't interrupt, so I can listen more. But yeah, your question was, how does ADHD impact decision making? And that's a very great question, because if someone is impulsive like me, when the stress is high, I can be making a lot of impulsive, reactive decisions without thinking them through. At times, it could be the right decisions, like if you know, when shit hits the fan and there's a lot of stuff that you need to take care of and needs to be decisions with little information, you know, my brain just fires on all cylinders and I can make these very quick decisions. But that's when my brain is engaged. When my brain is not engaged into something interesting, challenging, novel, or urgent, I'm not thinking things through properly. I'm not thinking effectively because I just want to get it done. I want it out of my way because it's a nuisance. It's not boring. I'm being forced to do something I don't want to do. So I will make an impulsive decision just to get the problem away. Can that be good? Like, I'll give you an example. I had a big payday at work. I got a bunch of cash in my bank account. I've been dreaming of updating my servers. This is in the days of servers for computers. And I just blew that $30,000 immediately without thinking about future cash flow. It's just something I wanted to get done for a long time. I put enough thought and just did it. Then had to really scrape through the next 6 months because of the cash flow. I had no cash to pay staff, no vendors, and then people were slowly paying me.
Okay, so we have a family business, and let's say the founder, so the leader, we recognize has ADHD.
Okay.
Okay, so they're running the firm, or they're the chairman of the board. And first of all, let's make this really clear. There's nothing wrong with ADHD. It's just something that people have. It's like pimples. Okay, that's how I'm going to describe it.
Right.
Okay?
Our brain is
There's
wired
nothing wrong.
differently.
There's
It
nothing
works
wrong.
differently.
Okay.
Correct.
So for you listening, if you have ADHD, it's not saying there's something wrong with it. Just saying, it's just like having pimples or wearing a blue shirt.
Well,
So
the way I describe it too, Franco, is ADHD is a strength, but like anyone else, if you don't manage your strengths, they become weaknesses. So as long as we manage our symptoms, they're strengthful. Like they're my strengths. But when I let the symptoms run rampant, now it becomes my Achilles heel.
So how does a next generation support a founder or patriarch or matriarch with their ADHD? Because if they have ADHD, I'm going to guess there's a higher probability they're going to have a difficult time making a decision regarding transitioning the business. Is that a correct assumption or not?
It will be very much so. And the main reason is there because if you're at a point where you're going to transition a business, especially from a founder, the founder built it from the ground up or brought it from one level to a next. That's like a startup mode. And that It's really good for the ADHD brain. Quick fires, got to build it. But once we're going to transition, that means the company is stable. There's a gradual growth and it's more calm. It's more stable. And there's less stuff for the ADHD
less
brain.
stimuli.
Less stimulants. Yeah. So like for me, my first engineering company, once I got to that hump of a self-managing company, it was working well. I got bored. This is undiagnosed. I got bored. So I started creating fires to solve. I kept causing problems to keep that interest going, which I should have been back in hindsight say, okay, now I need a manager to take care of that. I deal with certain things to develop new company, new services, or do side projects. So the transition is going to be tough because one is you built this baby, now you got to pass it over and it's being built slowly. My brain doesn't like slow.
So the trend. So one of the challenges that I see with when we're transitioning a business from one generation to the next, it's not an overnight process.
Correct.
And what I keep reminding, current generation and next generation is patience and compassion for each other, because, it's not like we built the business overnight. It took sometimes 30, 40, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's going to take 20, 30 or 40, 50 years to transition it, but it's going to take time, 3 to 5 years minimum. By the time everyone's prepared.
Oh, 3 to 5 years, man. That's
Yeah,
in
so
my
what's that
brain.
like
That's a
for an ADHD brain?
long time.
So how do we support? When I mean we, advisors and next gen, how do we support a founder or a current generation member who may have ADHD through this process? So they're still engaged, so they're still part of it without them emotionally blowing their brains up or being really bored and just leaving.
Correct. Or causing problems.
Yes.
Causing problems because there's not enough stimuli, or feeling threatened that the work that they did before is going to be replaced, or they're no longer needed. I think that's also a big fear. Now, the thing is, like with my program I've got with Tactical Breakthroughs, I'm all about, if you identify what you do well, try to keep doing that well. Keep doing that over and over again. And I'm not speaking, like you, Franco, you're a financial wealth management guy. Your strength is not necessarily just wealth management. Your strength is doing.
Actually, under correction, it's not wealth management. We
My
manage
apologies.
family dynamics.
Oh, family dynamics. Sorry.
During succession and transition. I used to be in wealth management. So
okay.
People sometimes think I still do that. That's okay.
But like your unique skill is applicable in any industry, could be applicable in any industry. And that's what I look for. What do you do well frequently? And that gives you energy to do over and over again. Like, with strategic coach, we call that the unique ability, or people call them like their top dollar strength, value add. Try to identify what they do best and try to keep them doing that. So for me, what I did with my transition here is I now only take care of problems, unique problems, projects. And if there's anything that needs decisions, because everyone's stuck on what to do next, that's where I come in. I stay out of projects, I stay out of management. So if we can identify that person's unique strength and ability and just keep honing it and going back, say, when we need you for these specific things, we'll come get you. And what they're not good at is try to keep that away from them, because the more they do things they're not good at or don't want to do, that's when the frustrations and the symptoms start to take over. And that's when they become problematic to other people, which a lot of people forget is ADHD is always based on how it disrupts other people, not necessarily the person. So if it's disrupting you, think about what that person's going through. Why are the symptoms taking over? Why are they being frustrated? Well, maybe we're asking them something for them to do that they don't like to do, or it's just boring.
Okay, so we've talked about ADHD from a current generation perspective. Let's talk about it from a next gen perspective that are considering or being considered to step into ownership and significant leadership roles.
Okay, so these people are probably looked at as a rogue, a maverick, someone that doesn't follow the rules, someone that goes wherever they want, whenever they want. Sometimes they could be seen as not stable. especially if they're hyperactive. Like for me, I always need to be on the move. Impulsivity sometimes takes over verbally. And people just associate that with not being competent. The oddball, we've been an oddball our whole lives. So if you're observing that, it'd be the same thing too, is what do they do well and what do they do well? Like do well frequently. And these next generations, just one person, or it could be multiple siblings or family.
So Andres, so would there be a tendency to scapegoat those kind of individuals?
Yes, overlook them. They're more problematic. That some of their the way they do things is annoying, or it's bothersome, or can be perceived as incompetent, may look the company bad. So they'll be overseen, overlooked of their skills rather than seen. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say we have a next gen that's a maverick, that is impulsive, all the things you described. How can we support them? How can we support them to become, exceptional leaders using their strengths?
Find them something that they can own and that they can excel at. So if you got a guy or a girl or a person that excels at sales, they're very good at going into a crowd or coming up with new revenue streams by talking to people, have them talk to customers or potential customers frequently. Don't have them filling out the paperwork after a phone call or doing accounting or whatnot. Have them work the crowd. What do they do best? Like for me, I'm a problem solver. I'm not a salesperson, but through my problem solving, I do sell. But as long as I'm out there solving problems for my customers, I come up with a solution. The rest of the stuff, the drawings, the engineering, I'm tired. I don't like doing that. So now my team does it for me. I solve the problem. I move on. I go on to the next one. My team finishes it up.
Okay, so if we're looking at the preparedness of a next generation family member, what we want to do is to find what is it that they love to do, right?
Exactly.
What they're really good at doing, and then create a role that supports what they love to do and what they're good at doing. So I think the example you gave of if they're a great talker and a salesperson, then they become the VP of sales, but that doesn't mean that they got to follow up. They're just out there generating sales and generating new relationships.
Yeah, and I think the misnomer from decades ago where one person does everything is gone. It doesn't work well, even back then. And this is really key here, because if you can get that brain in the right job, doing the right tasks, achieving what they want to achieve, you're not going to have a problem with any symptoms. They're going to get stuff done.
So, and I guess the default is, human beings, we tend to judge those that are different.
Oh yeah, tremendously.
So those of us, because I believe I have a little bit of ADHD, those of us that have ADHD get blamed for being weird, different, outside the box. We get criticized. Then I don't know what happens to others, but what happens for me is I turn that onto myself, and I judge and criticize myself, and down the rabbit hole I go.
Oh man, there's no way. There's no one else can say anything worse than I tell myself. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And just to clarify, like also ADHD is on a spectrum, like you pointed out. Like you got people that's got the symptoms are light, affects you every once in a while, versus like myself, I'm severe ADHD and it impacts me every day. So there is a spectrum for sure.
So I guess, the first thing for families to do is to recognize whether a family member, whether that's a current generation or next generation member, has ADHD, right? Understand that it's not personal. It's just how they think. It's how their brain works. They're not meant to be scapegoated. They're meant to be seen as they have some really powerful strengths. And it's about identifying what those are and expanding and harnessing those.
Exactly. And it's not only ADHD either, it's anyone. Like I've always said, like everyone's unique. ADHD, autism, neurotypical side, everyone's unique in what they do best. Let's identify what they do best and help them support that kind of role, create a role for them that they can excel, because if they excel, the whole company excels. And then as a leader, it's not good for me to say, I do it this way, therefore you should do it that way. I look for people's uniqueness, and that's what we all have to do, is find a uniqueness.
Andre, this is great. Thank you so much for having me on your show, to allow me to ask you questions that relates to family business. I think this is really invaluable for my demographic and those that I serve. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the questions, and like just a quick recap. Wow,
That's good.
recap.
Recap. Okay. It's
Recap.
what happens when you have two ADHD guys on the phone. Oh, look, something shiny. Oh, something shiny over there. Oh, recap.
Like you said, ADHD is not a problem. If you manage the symptoms to become your strengths, discover your non-ADHD strengths and the stuff that you like to do and love to do, and you'll do all day without getting tired. And to help create a role for that person to succeed is all key. And I would put in at the end is, if you wonder if you have ADHD, or you wonder if someone in the family has it, get the diagnosis. Once you know, there's treatment opportunities. Just having that awareness, like Franco, you're big on awareness, right? Self-awareness is key to choice and decision-making. You get that understanding yourself. It's not an excuse, it's an explanation. We communicate it, and you get success after there. Before we go, Franco, what's the next success project that you're working on?
My next book.
What's that about?
I'm working on my 6th book. So it's
Wow.
about, the concept is around emotional traditions. You know, in working with families for 18 years, I've started to see that there are repeatable patterns that get passed down from one generation to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And I call those emotional traditions. You know, an example could be a hypersensitive duty, or emotional abandonment, or using humor to deflect.
Right.
Right? 3 simple examples. So the book is about helping families understand that there's more to succession and transition than the actual succession and transition of the things and the stocks and the bonds and the real estate. But it's about, we have to be mindful that we don't transition our emotional baggage or emotional traditions as well, as they could impact the future. So that's the next topic.
Well, I can't wait to read that book, honestly, because you know what, Franco, every time we chat, I learn more and more about you, and what you bring your clients, no one does. Like you don't, yeah, you're just not talking about the stock and bonds of the business side. You're talking about relationships, understanding each other, self-awareness of emotions. That's deep. And I think once you get an understanding in that, people can communicate effectively and have a lot of success. So kudos on you, man. That's really good. I can't wait to read that book. And thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard today, subscribe to the podcast, please. If what you heard is beneficial to someone, please share this episode, share it with 2 or 3 friends, and give me a rating and comments down below. I want to hear from you, so please email me at questions@theimpulsivethinker.com or at the website. Thank you very much, Franco. Love this conversation.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you to the listeners. We'll talk to you soon.